So an example here, this is a really good calculator that we found. These things might change some, so please keep your eye on it and stay in touch with us so that we can keep you apprised of any changes. But Paychecks put this debt forgiveness calculator together. And I want to go through.
Rob, let me interrupt you for a moment.
Yes,
so I just had the question: is June 30th the end of it, or is it the end of the 8-week loan period? One of our clients got a loan on April 17th, and that's what he's trying to figure out.
Yeah, sure. So there's two things. That's a good question. Thank you. There's a couple of issues. You can spend your PPP money, and you may be eligible for debt forgiveness for those first 56 days that you have the money in your hands. So if you receive that money May 5th, you have until 56 days later, whatever that is, maybe the end of June or maybe the first day of July or something like that, to accumulate costs that may be eligible for forgiveness. However, separately from that, June 30th is an important date because for the headcount test, which may limit your debt forgiveness, and for the wage level test, which may also impact your debt forgiveness level, there is a picture or snapshot, it appears. What is your wage level? What is your headcount at June 30th? How does that compare to the base period or the reference period? And that will impact the extent to which your debt forgiveness is reduced. So again, you can use those full 56 days past June 30th if the 56 days carries you past June 30th. That's certainly fine. But your labor force, what does your labor force look like at June 30th? That's a really important point, and you need to think about what you want that to be, because it's going to it could have a significant impact on your level of debt forgiveness. Does that make sense, Carter? Okay. So, example here. I want to be careful on our time here. Loan value of $1 million. So based on last year's payroll, again, it's based on last year's payroll, you were able to secure a $1 million loan from your lender for a PPP loan. What's the first thing that you do? You look at the 8 weeks after you get the money. You look at the payroll costs that you pay or maybe incur. Again, really a critical question on paid versus incurred. But you look at those 8 weeks, what were my payroll costs during that period of time? And let's say, for the sake of argument, $600,000. Now, this contemplates, frankly, a scenario where maybe your payroll level was higher during 2019, and now your wage levels are lower, your headcount may be lower, and so your payroll cost for these next 8 weeks is only $600,000. What do you do next? Item 3, you look at your other forgiveness eligible costs, mortgage interest, rent, utilities, a few other items.
Hey, Rob.
And let's say, yes, sir.
We're getting a lot of questions on this particular aspect. What is deductible from?
Yeah.
So is it just rent for a building, or is it rent on lease equipment, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely rent on a building, it qualifies for sure. It's an open question and needs to be clarified by the SBA whether rent of vehicles, rent of heavy equipment, for example, could be included as a cost as well. It's not clear. The legislation does not appear to exclude those non-property types of rents. However, it's not entirely certain that that was the purpose either. So we will need to wait for some guidance and some clarity and frankly, some conclusion by the SBA over this next month or two on whether that is included.
And I should add, Rob, there is a push to move from the 75% payroll, 25% mortgage, rent, utilities to 50%, 50%. So that is being actively discussed and pushed. So this could all change within the next period of time.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Alexis. Thank you. It is a fluid situation for sure. What we have presented here are the rules as they stand right now, as best interpreted as can be done, we think. But there is heavy push from small business community and from others to make these rules more appealing and more attractive and more beneficial to the small business community. So there could be changes for certain to these rules. But for the moment, $600,000 in our example of payroll costs, $300,000 of non-payroll related costs. So what happens immediately? This first limitation comes into play. You're not going to get, in this scenario, you're not going to get forgiveness on that full $900,000 because your non-payroll costs, you cannot have more than 25% of the forgiveness. Only 25% of the forgiveness can relate to non-payroll costs. So that $300,000 is limited to $200,000, such that you get debt forgiveness on $600,000 of payroll, $200,000 of non-payroll. $200,000 is 1/4 of that total $800,000 where you now stand in terms of the max debt forgiveness that you can hope for. And we haven't applied some of the other tests yet. So be very careful about that. It's a critical issue. It's really going to impact some people. Hopefully it's loosened up some, but we can't know that it will be. The next step, you have to look at your labor force. The next 2 steps. This step here is looking at your head count. I'll go through this quickly. It's complicated. The details are complicated, but the concept is pretty simple. You look at your current head count. What is it? Let's say you have 8 full-time employees and you have 2 half-time employees. That probably is going to translate to 9 full-time equivalent employees. And if that's what your employee level is on June 30th, then that's the top of this equation. That's the numerator in this equation that we're going to put together. What is your reference period? You can look at either the first couple of months of 2020, or you can look at the first half of 2019. You have the option. You should choose the one where you had a lower head count during that period of time, because you want that lower part of this equation to be a smaller number. In our example, we've said that you have 9 people on June 30th, and previously you had 10 people. So per the debt forgiveness rules, you've had a 10% reduction in your head count. And what is that going to do? It's going to reduce your eligible debt forgiveness on a proportional basis by 10%. So we were at $1 million. We had $900,000 of costs that we thought were eligible, but we were capped because of the 25% limitation on the non-payroll. So that took us to $800,000. The headcount test, we shaved off another 10%. So now we're down to $720,000. Next, the wage level test. This is the one that we discussed a few minutes ago. Person by person, employee by employee, June 30th versus the reference period. Did that individual's salary wage level decrease by more than 25% versus the pre-COVID-19 levels? If so, for 1 person, for 3 people, for 30 people, for all of them, if it's on a dollar for dollar basis, to any extent that you go over that 25% limit, you will reduce your, the debt forgiveness will be reduced accordingly. So it's okay to have a 20% reduction in wages or 25%. But if you go over it, it's not a light switch. It's not like if you go over that 25%, we don't think so at least. It's not like a light switch where if you go over that 25%, you lose all of that debt forgiveness. But the incremental portion is going to count against you. In our example, we've just said that's $5,000. That's going to reduce your debt forgiveness from $720 to $715. And then finally, the EIDL. If you received an EIDL, let's say $10,000, a grant, then the government figures, well, we've given you those funds already, and we're going to reduce that from your PPP debt forgiveness. And so you end up with $705,000 in this example that should be forgiven, assuming you have some good documentation and are able to navigate that conversation with your lender.